Shifting focus for now to the United States, Los Angeles is waking up after a long and violent Sunday night. Over the weekend, protests over immigration raids escalated into full-blown street clashes. So much so that President Trump sent military force into LA to tackle the violence. So what really happened in America's entertainment capital? It all started last Friday. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, carried out raids on multiple locations across Los Angeles. Heavily armed agents detained dozens of undocumented immigrants in what has been described as an overly aggressive anti-immigration crackdown. And by the weekend, the anger spilled out onto the streets. Los Angeles, which is home to a large Latino community, saw protests break out across the city. Protesters clashed with the police, hurled rocks, torched vehicles, even self-driving Waymo cars. In response, the police fired tear gas, smoke grenades, rubber bullets. Officers tried to disperse the demonstrators as fires burned in downtown streets. In the clash, even a journalist from Australia was hit by a rubber bullet fired by the police. The moment was caught on video, showing the reporter crying out in pain and grabbing her leg after being hit.
You just shut the fuck up! After hours of standing off, this situation has now rapidly deteriorated. The LAPD moving in on horseback, firing rubber bullets at protesters, moving them on through the heart of LA. You just shut the fuck up!
They don't even know that are documented or undocumented. They're just grabbing people and like pulling them in vans. And that's like the scary thing about it. It creates a big fear, in the communities. So it's like I can come to like go to school, come back, and get a phone call and be like, my parents aren't here. Where are my parents?
But Trump's decisions have stunned even his critics. As the violence worsened, he called in the troops, ignoring the governor's objections. By ordering 2,000 National Guardsmen to Los Angeles to help quell the protests, Trump essentially mounted a takeover of the military regiments to address lawlessness on the streets there. The National Guard is a reserve military rooted in the 17th century local militias created in the American colonies before the country's founding. Since then, the Guard has had multiple responsibilities: domestic disaster relief, security, homeland defense, and prevention of civil unrest, and acting as reserve forces for the U.S. military deployments overseas. Presidential orders to deploy guardsmen domestically are not uncommon, but clashes between a president and governor over deployments, or the lack thereof, such as during the Capitol riots by Trump supporters on January 6, 2021, have been rare. And Trump's deployment of the National Guard marks the first time in decades that a U.S. president openly defied a state governor and sent troops to an emergency zone. In doing so, the White House said Trump relied on a seldom used law known as Title 10 that basically permits the National Guard federalization in terms of a rebellion, in times of a rebellion or danger of a rebellion against the authority of the government of the United States. California governor called this purposefully inflammatory and a serious breach of state sovereignty. He also threatened to take Trump to court over this decision. On social media, as Trump called protesters insurrectionists, the governor urged protesters to remain peaceful and said, quoting, "Don't take Trump's bait." And if that wasn't enough, the U.S. Defense Secretary also warned that the Pentagon was prepared to mobilize active duty troops if the violence continues in Los Angeles, saying the Marines at nearby Camp Pendleton were on high alert. And the streets of downtown LA looked like a war zone. By Sunday afternoon, Los Angeles police had established barricades around federal buildings, separating protesters from scores of armed National Guardsmen. The 79th Infantry Brigade combat team was spotted in full camouflage, helmets, gear, and by evening, authorities declared downtown Los Angeles an area of unlawful assembly. Authorities declared a state of unlawful assembly there. The LAPD sealed off federal buildings while troops from the 79th Infantry lined up with helmets and camouflage gear. At least 56 people were arrested. 3 officers were injured. The Los Angeles Police Department said it would not have deployed the National Guard to quell the unrest, and that the troops' involvement was directed top down from President Trump's orders.
Could handle this. I believe that we would have gone through a number of steps before we'd have deployed the National Guard or requested deployment of the National Guard. We would normally go to 50% deployment to handle radio calls and do the business of policing, and everybody else would be focused on the initial problem. Beyond that, then we would request through the sheriff mutual aid, and that would bring in members of the 44 other police departments in LA County as well as the sheriff's office. And so that didn't occur in this case because it wasn't done through the sheriff or through the up through the normal chain. It was done from the top down, from the president directing that happen, and then the National Guard was federalized. So they're working for the U.S. Army, not for the California State National Guard.
And Trump? He hinted at nationwide deployments in response to a question about invoking the Insurrection Act, which would allow the military to be used as a domestic police force. Trump said, I'm quoting, "We are looking at troops everywhere. We are not going to let this happen to our country," quote unquote. The entire episode has sparked political outrage. Democrats, including Kamala Harris, have called this a dangerous escalation. 22 Democratic governors on Sunday, in fact, condemned Trump's decision to deploy the National Guard in LA. In a joint statement, they called it an alarming abuse of power. But Republicans are backing Trump. House Speaker accused California governor of failing to maintain order. Politics aside, the protesters saying they are outraged, not just by ICE raids, but by what they see as an attack on their constitutional rights. The Los Angeles unrest has become the largest and most intense pushback against Trump's immigration policies yet. And if this weekend is any indication, the politics around immigration enforcement is not going to die down anytime soon. To stay up to speed with the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.